What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, I'm just following up on an article that I read about President Trump basically saying that he plans on working with Xi, the president of China, to make a more peaceful world and that they're going to solve many problems together. So, this is really important, the tone. And the reason why I want to make a video about it is because I think Trump is probably one of the best geopolitical presidents we had probably since Clinton. I think Biden got some things done, but it was Biden administration. But Trump, as far as just geopolitically thinking, wow, you got to go back to Eisenhower. As far as you know that these ideas do not come from a think tank, they come from his vision, his worldview. If that's the case, then you got to go back to maybe Eisenhower administration somewhere back then. But as far as effectiveness, you can say maybe Clinton. So the reason why I say this is because Trump does two things, right? One, and why I give him so much credence is this is a guy that didn't grow up in the space. He's a real estate developer. And he has many grand ideas, and a lot of his grand ideas, I don't know who he's listened to, but a lot of these grand ideas have been in the geopolitical space for ages. And they're very well founded, they're very thorough, but they're very pragmatic. But they are not necessarily politically push, right? And I'll give you an example of that in a second. Um, Trump does two things, right? One, talk about this aspect of it not being political. He don't start the conversation off with China needs to practice human rights. He doesn't start the conversation off with a tone of judgment, a condescending tone. He starts the conversation off optimistically, and this goes into the second point. The second point is he plays a balanced strategy, right? If he thinks you're going to be a real problem, he starts the conversation off friendly, escalate to vitriol, right? Conversely, if he think you're going to be an ally, he starts the conversation off vitriolic, and then he moves it to friendly relations. Give you an example: Europe, Canada. He started off talking about invading Canada, or basically Canada being a 51st state. Start off telling Europe they need to escalate their defense budget. So he takes the for sure relationships, which he knows is his bird in the hand, and he's very aggressive with them. It really shakes things up, and I think he does that kind of like this art of war type of thing. Like I think he's trying to create um, a chaotic environment. It's the tone shift. You talking to allies, which are used to Americans being very friendly with them. So when he comes out aggressive and snatches their attention. Conversely, when he deals with an antagonistic relationship, maybe Russia, China, they're used to Americans talking down, being condescending, being aggressive, being assertive, being on the back foot. So when an American leans in friendly, it tone shifts them, and I think it wakens people up, right? It wakens people up to a conversation, and they're ready to talk. So it's those two things that I really find interesting. Two, it goes back to the geopolitical arena in regards of if you study geopolitics, and I remember reading this thoroughly from Nicholas Spikeman, one of the great geopolitical thinkers of history. And you have to look at the continent of Eurasia. Eurasia is the problem. Actually, it's Asia, right? And Europe just happened to be attached to Asia. And the reason why is because Asia is the largest continent. It has the largest population. So it has abundant resources and a lot of people. Those two things are overwhelming. You can't really blockade that. So how do you influence that? You can only divide and conquer, right? And your opportunity comes from dividing. And the major players on the Asian continent is going to be Russia, China, India. And when you look at Eurasia as a whole, which you have to do, you can't separate, regardless of what they say about Europe being its own continent. But you have to really look at Eurasia, Europe as an extension of Asia. So Eurasia as a whole. And what you have is this massive land block, right? And let's just say, for simplistic reasons, a rectangular block, right? And on the eastern fringe of that block, On the Western Fringe, you have a lot of countries. You got France, Netherlands, Belgium, Portugal, Spain, right? On the Eastern end, you only have really two countries, right? China and Russia, right? You have like Korea, but Korea is shrunk in comparison to those, right? On this vast this latitude that we're talking of. Now, the way expansion works, the way the strategy works, historically speaking, what are the lily pads? What is the lily pad? How do you project power? If you're a foreign power, you have to occupy the islands first, right? Where did the Spanish come to first, right? The Bahamas, Dominican Republic, right? Before Hernando Cortez were able to conquer the Aztecs, he started off in Cuba, right? Because the big landmass is too strong, too powerful, too impenetrable. Nobody knows what's going on there. So what do foreign powers do? They occupy the island, and from the island they get intelligence. They foray into the continent before they do anything major. That's what America does with United Kingdom and Europe. America's strongest alliance with Europe is the United Kingdom, the island off of the continent. And from there, it projects its power closer onto the continent through NATO. But it starts with the United Kingdom. America don't have United Kingdom. If United Kingdom was an enemy of America, it'd be hard for America to build strong strategic relationships with Western Europe. Conversely, America did the same thing, except in Asia, Japan acts as the United Kingdom. If America doesn't have great relationship with Japan, it will be hard for America to project great relationships with the continent of East or the continent of Asia through East Asia. But going forward with this, right, in a tripolar world, this is why I say China is America's natural ally. China plays a role of Western Europe. And just as though the key goal of America for American security, for Western Hemisphere security, because the Western Hemisphere is much smaller than the old world of Europe, Russia, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Therefore, the Western Hemisphere can be squeezed from a demographic and economic point of view if the old world had its stuff together, right? So the goal of America as the hegemon in the Western Hemisphere is to basically put its palms on the western fringe of Europe, the eastern fringe of Asia, to prevent continental synergy, continental consolidation. This was the great grand strategy that was spoke of in the mid 20th century, right? If America wants peace, it has to prevent consolidation on the Eurasian landmass. So this is what I think is brilliant, because I know Trump didn't read this book, and I know he didn't study this idea of thought, but he intuitively understands. And what do I constantly say? Although India has an inside lane of relations due to its historical relationship with United Kingdom, India is truly America's problem. India is truly America's issue, because America doesn't have a check on India. And the only way America can, when I say a check, I mean a way of influence. And the only way that America can have any strategic influence to stop India from acting out in against American interests is to have a strong security presence in Western Europe, strong security presence in Eastern Europe. The Middle East is a big plus. Don't get me wrong, the Middle East is a big plus. But from there, right, it kind of hamstrings India somewhat. You can't lose China, Russia, and India. America has to weave its way through those three countries, right? More China and India. America can't lose those. They have to maintain. Henry Kissinger says during the Cold War, we wanted to be closer to Russia, the Soviet Union, and China than they were with each other, right? And it's the same thing now. America needs to be closer with India and China than they are with each other. But strategically speaking, China is the biggest play. It has a lot more, its relationship is a lot more complementary to America based off its demographics, based off its industry, its climate, etc. It's less antagonistic, it's complementary, right? And they have benefit, right? Chinese culture is a lot more traditional, which basically complements American forward-looking culture. That means they don't occupy the same space. India, on the other hand, is both traditional And I think India, as they start to feel themselves, I believe they're going to want to rework the world. China has, for all intents and purposes, ascended the global stage in a relatively benign way. For the amount of growth and impact China has had on the world, it would be hard to find another world power, another country or nation as powerful and influential as China, being the workshop of the world, that has been benign, relatively restrained in China. And that's because that is endemic to the Chinese culture and how they operate. I think as India grow and when India starts to get to a certain degree of confidence, whereas I think China will always seek to collaborate, maintain a sort of sensible world order because China railroads, remember, in partnership, the opening of China, we would say, through the Nixon administration. But China kind of rose in partnership with America. Whereas I think India is going to rise regardless. And I think the partnership with America helps, but India is going to go where they come. I just read. So India's doing the H-1B visa, right? They're the number one diaspora in the world. They're playing the developing world. They're leading H-1B visa in America, so they're playing the Western world. And they're still a top weapons importer from Russia. So that's the second world, right? So India is playing all these fields. India has no bounds. That's why India is such a, I think it's going to be a great challenge for America. Even right now, I don't think it's going to be interesting how America can try to slow down these resources from Russia into India. Because right now, that's what's holding Russia up, really, is China and India, more or less. And I think America has it because China is so hungry to keep developing, keep growing, maintain stability, that I think China is very, very open to American suggestion because they don't want any more tariffs. They don't want any more intelligence restrictions. They're trying to suck as much as they can from American development into theirs and build on top of that. Where I think India, every day, every relationship is thinking of ways to build in, over, around, and through America. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours. But Donald Trump really embracing China, I believe. I think he's doing this ahead of saying, hey, let's solve some problems together. I'll tariff you if I have to. But really, I want to be your friend. And I think that's the tone he's going to need to set, especially until this Ukraine-Russia thing is over, if it's ever going to be over, or if it's turning into something such similar to a Korean Peninsula situation. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bad to up.